So, sir, thanks for joining us today on Leadership Log, which is a podcast for the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center community on topics of interest. And today we're talking about the KC-135, that venerable tanker that's been up in the air for probably longer than most of us have been alive. And we're here to learn everything we can about it with Colonel Mocio. So, sir, if you could please just introduce yourself and give us a little on your career background.
Thank you. I am Colonel Mark Mocio, a career acquisition officer. We're down here at Tinker with the Legacy Tanker division, where we are responsible for lifecycle management of the KC-135 and KC-10 actually as well, which I'll mention later. Personally, I've been in the Air Force 28 years. As I mentioned, I've had numerous program office assignments, predominantly at Wright, Pat, and Robbins. I did have a space acquisition assignment at Kirtland Air Force Base, the requisite couple of Pentagon staff tours, and I was fortunate to career broaden as a young captain into aircraft maintenance way back when, which I carry to this day, especially in this job. So I arrived here at Tinker to assume this position, the KC-135 senior material leader, as well as the division chief, in 2016, the spring of 2016. And it's just been a wonderful assignment, location, team, and a real highlight of my career. So thank you.
So, sir, you said you're at Tinker. The team is there. How big a staff do you have?
Yeah, for the whole division, we have just north of 200 folks to include the KC-10 team. But for the 135, we have about 180 that are dedicated to supporting the KC-135. Of all the key functionals, to include, of course, engineering program managers, logisticians, financial management professionals, and contracting. And we are all here, a mix of predominantly civilian, some military, and of course contractors, all focused on working here in the program office and supporting the KC-135 weapon system. I would like to stress that that's the program office, and that's what we're here to talk about today. But the fleet of KC-135s is really supported Air Force wide. So as a program office, we quarterback and certainly have a key role. But I just want to shout out to our partners at the Oklahoma City Air Logistics Center that do the heavy maintenance and a lot of the actually organic repairs of components. Our partners in the propulsion director at LCMC who take care of our engine, simulators up at Wright Pat, and of course the Air Force supply chain. The KC-135 is 100% organic. So much support comes from throughout the Air Force. We're just happy to be part of that big team. And then, of course, our industry partners as well. So that's our team at Tinker, dedicated program office, and then the bigger Air Force team.
So let's talk a little bit about this amazing aircraft, and it is an amazing aircraft, the KC-135 Stratotanker. It's based on the Boeing 707 jet airliner, which in reading I read was not necessarily the very first jet airliner, but it's kind of marks the beginning of the jet age, so to speak. And so we started with that aircraft, but it's a vastly different aircraft than it was in 1954 that it is today. So walk us through some of the things that you've done over the years to modernize this airplane. I know the engines have been updated at one point, but what are some of the other things?
Yeah, yes, sir, you're right. Born out of the depth of the Cold War, the KC-135 was really built and designed to drag around B-52s around the globe, supporting the nuclear deterrent mission. And today, we just do so much more. To keep the aircraft relevant, we have re-engined actually twice. The aircraft was produced with J-79s, moved to TF-33s, and now in the 90s, we brought on the F-108, which has proven to be just a great investment for the Air Force and for the nation. It's given us the ability to drive out well into the mid-century, very reliable, and also added some performance to the aircraft with fuel efficiency and such that really brings us into the 2000s as a modern aircraft. Coupled with that, about the same time as the re-engineering, we went into a flight deck update sequence where we started in the late 90s, mid 90s with a program called Pacer Crag, followed by GATM, Global Air Traffic Management. And then that sequence of updates culminated in our current mod, which was initiated about 10 years ago and is in full rate production. That's Block 45. All those are CNS ATM obsolescence, flight deck updates that really pull the aircraft in sequence out of the analog, a lot of obsolete, original design, quite frankly, some of the flight deck, into a modern cockpit today. So we're about halfway through our Block 45 mod. It's done here with the Speedline install at the organic depot here at Tinker. And then part of that, we brought in the ADSB out. So there's no airspace we can't operate in worldwide, thanks to that modernization sequence. And we're more reliable and postured for growth into the future.
So is that an upgrade that when the aircraft come in for like depot maintenance, PDM, or that's when that maintenance or that upgrade happens?
So we do have a 5-year cycle where every aircraft comes in for PDM, and the capability here is spectacular at the depot. So a lot of mods we do. This particular one we don't. It's actually pretty intrusive. It would have added some lost availability to the fleet. So the decision was to actually break it out. So our normal PDM takes about 140, 150 days. The Block 45 modification on average takes about 45 days. So the choice working with AMC is to get that goodness on that flight deck, to not extend the time in depot. The math works out that we're able to do 38 aircraft a year here in a dedicated speed line. That being said, a lot of the other work we're doing, we fold into the actual PDM line itself.
Now, you mentioned a couple things, CNS ATM and also the ADSB. What are those upgrades? What do those kind of entail?
So working with the CNS ATM office at Hanscom and the global FAA and Global Air Traffic Network, we added on all the modern communication devices, all the modern air traffic control devices, because our mission, as you know, as we talked, is worldwide. So those were discrete mods, but coupled together, it enables us to support any worldwide tasking.
Okay, and so you can fly in airspace anywhere in the world now.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, and there'll be 390 plus aircraft deployed across the U.S., around the world, and en route. So all over the planet, they're operating. And in fact, many of the missions will rely on the 135 as the lead to do a fighter drag or do different taskings.
Again, I was reading that when the Air Force first acquired the KC-135, that they bought 800 of them between 1957 and 1965, which seems incredibly fast to get 800 aircraft into the fleet. So far now, we've acquired somewhere 40 or so KC-46s, which are going to be obviously the replacement. But it's going to take some more time before they're fully capable, and so the 135 is going to need to be in the air for a little bit longer, maybe a little bit longer than we originally thought. How is your team flexing to meet that schedule to make sure that, because as you mentioned earlier, we don't do anything. We don't fly missions without tanking capability somewhere around.
Yeah, so we work hand in hand with the KC-46 team, and that's a tremendous asset to our Air Force. But as you mentioned, it's not ready to go quite yet. So we're work hand in glove with the fleet size managers at the Air Force and AMC level. And I should point out the current fleet structure that the Air Force envisions over the next decade really will carry hundreds of 135s into 2030 and beyond. And so as the 46 builds out and completes and becomes fully operational, we've already begun slowly retiring this much smaller KC-10 fleet, and that'll happen over the next few years. And then today we have not retired any 135s to support the 46 deliveries. That's coming. And then as we do that, we'll actually keep 3/4 of the fleet. So on the order of 300 or so aircraft at the end of the decade will still be KC-135s, doing the mission every day in family with the KC-46 fleet. After that is a work in progress. So we're postured as an airframe to be available and operational through 2050 plus. Whether the Air Force will require the 135 to be around that long is on some decisions being made as we speak right now on what the next tanker looks like beyond KC-46 into the old KC-Y, KC-Z family, things like that. So we're postured to support the Air Force if called on to drive out that far. And certainly we'll be around in significant numbers at the end of, throughout the 20s and at the end of this decade as required. The key to that, though, is to your question, is the basic airframe is rock solid. The basic airframe produced, way back when, 6 years ago, was well built. And so today, our major struggle is corrosion. We have a thorough understanding, thanks to a lot of our decisions over the years to tear down aircraft and to do robust modeling and great understanding of the structure and the physics of the metal or chemistry of the metal and everything. So we really have a deep knowledge of the basic airframe, and what we do every day now is really fight that corrosion. And so that's the key role that our field maintainers and our PDM line play. So the structure itself is ready to go. What we need to do is keep that front end current and able to operate, keep it available so that we drive out obsolescence or downtime drivers, and then relevant as our nation evolves requirements and looks to make sure we're capable of executing all the missions we do, whether that's catching up with some of the KC-46 capability, some complementary capability as we move through the next 10, 20 years. The program we use to manage this is called the Weapon System Integrity Program, and that's a heavy lift by our engineering branch and is overseen by LCMC. And I just want to mention that program because the energy and the resources we put in that allows us to be confident that we never arrogant or laissez-faire, but that we're confident that we're trying to address every issue of the airframe and that we keep that airframe strong, even though we turn our 60th birthday and then one day our 70th birthday and beyond.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the innovative ways that you found to either find areas of corrosion or to treat them?
Yeah, so we have a lot of people think about high tech and innovation in the new airplane world. Well, we're getting it in the old plane world. All the different ways that we can do non-destructive inspections with different physics, with ultrasound, with eddy current, with X-rays. We do all that, and we're always looking for new techniques to see in the structure. So between those teardowns and actually component teardowns we do today to see what's going on, and then the ability to see through the skin and look into the structure and to recognize where we might see corrosion or some developing situations, we utilize that, and that's built out of our continuum of inspections. And really the inspections, of course, happen at the depot. And in fact, our first gate at the depot, the first 15 days, we're doing all those X-rays and looking through the skin to see what we need to do. But it's complemented by what the field maintainer sees every day. We're asking them to look at certain parts of the aircraft. We're asking them to look for certain things, send us pictures, send us information. So by understanding how that aircraft is doing, where it's at, what the field guys are seeing, field inspections that are like the isochronal inspection, and then book stopped, if you will, by the PDMs. We're trying to get in every corner of the aircraft, either pulling the structure off and looking at it, which of course we do, and then all those innovative ways to see through the structure to analyze what's going on in there. That is a robust sustaining engineering effort we do that is funded with some of our partners in the organic world, with the depot, as well as Boeing and AFRL, to look at new ways to do that work. And that's always something we're looking for, new ways to see what's going on inside the aircraft.
You mentioned kind of the relationship between the field maintenance units and the depot maintenance units. So talk to us about that relationship, and how do you kind of coordinate so that you're understanding what the field guys are doing and they understand what you're doing back at the depot?
Yes, sir. We do work very closely with our field users. We have 33 CONUS bases, overseas deployed locations. 50% of our fleet is in the Guard, 10% is in the Reserve, and then 40% is in the active AMC component. So we work across that spectrum with primarily headquarters AMCA4 to make sure that we drive our tech data to run that continuum of inspections so that we're looking for things that can lead to a problem that will get addressed in the field or at depot. And then we have that more direct and detailed inspection, again, at that PDM event to make sure that anything we're seeing, we know where to look, we know what might be going on, and then we'll go in at PDM and go after that and repair it if possible, or fix it. So it's that tech data guidance that we look at as a continuum. No one knows the aircraft better than the field maintainer, but they're trying to generate missions. So we ask them, to do that job, of course, but as they're doing that, to help us look for areas, which they do. And again, they know the aircraft very well, better than anybody. And then when we get to see it every 5 years, being co-located right with our depot, literally in the same building at Tinker, we're able to have our partners in the depot work on some issues that we know are coming and that they know how to fix. And then we're able to go look for any escapes or anything, any learning events that we have. We always try to solve tomorrow's problems today by that robust weapon system integrity plan, looking forward, trying to understand anything that's happening with the structure, as well as any issue that we need to work. But it's that rich relationship we have with them and the trust they have in us as a program office that we're addressing their issues. We're very proud. We do a lot of technical assistance requests, and that's our number one priority every morning when we wake up. Is if the field's asking for a part situation or a disposition, that's our number one job every morning, is to turn those as fast as we can. So we've built to do that, and then lead that knowledge into our inspection program.
It's all about keeping them flying, and ultimately, the availability of tankers is not an option for the Air Force. It's something necessary, something that we have to have for day-to-day operations. So how does your team kind of deal with that pressure? If a situation arises or something, how do you ensure that you're able to get a repair out to the field and ensure that availability is there?
Well, and that's a great question. And that's a challenge. Every aircraft at every field unit is their most important aircraft, and we're looking at a fleet, and so we're trying to balance returning that aircraft to serviceability, which is goal one, always get that aircraft back in the fight. But we're also trying to balance: is there something we haven't seen before? Has another unit seen this? Is this deserving of special attention? And so there are times when we'll turn really fast, and that's a family, as I mentioned, with our depot partners, potentially our contractors. Sometimes Boeing will help us, the field unit capability, and the resources to make that happen with money or parts. And so oftentimes it's something we've seen and we understand, but it's not a fleet-wide problem, so we can go out and get it. Other times, and on my watch, this has happened a couple of times, we've had a situation where there was some newness. So we really work as a family with our user and our all the resources available to us to sit down and look through a problem, understand what's going on, if necessary, do some analysis digitally or actual testing, and then step out with the fleet-wide fix. And so I think at first it takes a team and takes that constant vigilance and focus on what the field's telling us, what they're seeing. And there's a lot of good interchange with them on Can you get another picture of that? Can you measure that again? And then before COVID, we would often go out. We would often go out and look at it, and that's become more limited. But with the pictures and our confidence with each other, we're able to still work through that challenge.
Okay. So, sir, we're just about at the end of our time, but before we go, I want to see, is there anything that we've left out or anything that we should add about this amazing aircraft?
Well, I think that I want to say that it is an amazing aircraft, and while we are holders of the SPO office symbol right now, and I mentioned that larger Air Force family, we should just be proud as a nation and an Air Force that the KC-135 is viable today, and that rests on, quite frankly, the giants before us, the decisions they made to re-engine, the decisions they made to invest in that platform originally and build it so strong by Boeing. We're reaping benefits today that keeps us able to build on what they did and try to set it up for the next team. So while we're in the office today, I'd just like to give the credit to our predecessors, and also that as a program office, we're focused on our airmen in the field, both the maintainers and the operators, and we value that trust that they have in us, and we know that can be perishable. So we're proud of where we've come. We're proud of where we're at today. We got a lot of challenges in front of us, but we working with our field and enterprise customers, we hope to bring her into the 2020s through the 2030s and beyond if necessary, right? So thank you for the time. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the 135.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.